Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1263B and today's date is April 25th, 2017, and the title of the episode is The Covert Plan is Working in Conjunction with the Collapse of the Economy. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the corporate media, the neocons, the central bank, the deep state, they are continually pushing their investigation to find something that can be sent out on the airwaves to let everyone know that Trump has been colluding with Russia, or at least someone in his administration has been colluding with Russia. And they're doing whatever they possibly can to find something. Now, in regards to Michael Flynn, they're saying that, yes, he has colluded with Russia, because what they're saying is he received funds and he didn't disclose these funds for a speaking engagement in Russia and lobbying activities on behalf of Turkey. And Chavez confirmed that Flynn had failed to reveal more than $45,000 as he was paid to speak at a 2015 gala for RT. So, as of right now, this is what they have, and this is what the corporate media is out there publishing. The Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, and the rest are pushing this out there to see, look, there is Russian collusion. I don't really consider this Russian collusion, but we can see that many politicians, many individuals do a lot of speeches. Think about Tim Geithner when he was being brought into the government as the Treasury Secretary. He didn't pay his taxes of $100,000, and and he was going to run the Treasury, and nobody had a problem. And you have to remember, most of Congress right now, they receive funds from all over the place. And if we really dove into any of these individuals, like Maxine Waters, who's been giving funds to her daughter, or many others like Dianne Feinstein with her husband and getting all these contracts, you will find things that you will not believe. But they're going along with this, and they're saying that the White House denies U.S. House Committee requests for internal Flynn documents, and they're really building this up. Now, yesterday we talked about how Trump and Sessions are going after WikiLeaks. Even though that Trump said that he loves WikiLeaks, then he flip-flopped and says he doesn't love WikiLeaks. Let's get him. And we made a mention of maybe this is being used for another reason. Now, Attorney General Jeff Sessions is reportedly prepping to throw the book at WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange for allegedly aiding Edward Snowden in disclosing a trove of classified documents. Until now, bringing charges against WikiLeaks had given Justice Department officials heartburn because other media outlets had, similarly published stolen materials. But new revelations about Snowden have been accompanied by an attorney general who also might be willing to widen the scope of such prosecutions to other news outlets. Very interesting. Does this mean they're going to be looking into other news outlets and they're going to be investigating on their connections, on how they receive certain leaks? Because if they do it to one, they have to do it to others. Or is the corporate media going to come out and support WikiLeaks and say, no, this is against the First Amendment, you cannot do this? Because once they do this, they can never say anything about WikiLeaks again. So is this a plan to trap the corporate media? Because they have them trapped on either side here. Because if they allow the investigation, they will be investigated. If they support WikiLeaks, well, now they're supporting WikiLeaks. This seems like a very good move. Now, we see that the Wall Street Journal and many other corporate media publications are out there saying that it looks like Russia is cyber attacking the French presidential frontrunner and maybe the elections. And this is coming from a security firm, Trend Micro, saying that there are digital fingerprints, that it looks like it could be Russian hacking. Maybe, we're not sure, because it matches the fingerprints of the DNC hacking. Now, we know from Vault 7, the CIA does have the ability to make it look like Russia did hack something. And if Russia was going to actually hack something, Why would they leave breadcrumbs? Why would they leave any information? And to track this back through servers, completely impossible. Now, they're saying if a Russian connection is proved, the hacking would add to mounting allegations that Moscow is backing attempts to influence Western elections in favor of candidates with policies potentially more friendly to the Kremlin. Now, this is because Macron and Le Pen, they are now running against each other, and they're very nervous that Le Pen might win. As we know, Obama called Macron, and he supported Macron, and basically he kind of interfered with the elections because he threw his support for this candidate. Very interesting, and this is the same thing they blamed Russia in doing. But of course they added the Russian hacking part of it. But something very interesting we need to understand about all of this, that on March 6th, France announced that internet voting, which had previously been offered to citizens abroad, would not be permitted in the 2017 legislative elections due to cybersecurity concerns. Now, there are 45.7 million registered voters in France. The vast majority of voting in France is going to be done by paper ballot and counted by hand. Each paper ballot will be dropped into a clear glass box. There is no electronic voting and very few voting machines. Nothing can be hacked here. So whatever story you're hearing about cyber attacks on the French election or hacking into Macron or anything like that, well, that is completely fake, phony, and false. Yeah, maybe they're hacking into his servers, but this is not going to help with the elections whatsoever. Now, they tried pushing the idea of fake news. They had the terrorist attack to stop the elections. And you can see what is happening right now. They're doing whatever they possibly can to sway the elections to make sure their candidate wins. And I'm talking about the deep state, the central bankers, the neocons. They want Macron. They don't want Le Pen. And you could see this is what they've been trying to do. And we can see right now that all this cyber attacks and all this hacking is absolutely meaningless. Once again, it is completely made up, and they have no evidence whatsoever, and the elections cannot be altered because it's paper ballots. Now, out in Venezuela, we see things are really heating up. The people are struggling. The country not doing well whatsoever. And according to the leader, the U.S. government wrote up a coup scenario for opposition leader Julio Borges. A day before opposition leader convened more protests in Caracas calling for the ouster of Venezuela's government, the country leader has accused the United States of working with the right-wing leaders towards a coup. And Maduro is out there saying that the U.S. government, the State Department, has given the green light, the approval for a coup process to intervene in Venezuela. Now, we know the United States has been trying to get into Venezuela for a very long time. They want the oil there. They want the natural resources. And we've seen it happen in Ukraine. We've seen it happen in Libya, Yemen, Somalia, Iraq, ongoing in Syria, Somalia, Sudan, Yemen. We see it all over the place. And we see right now that Maduro is saying that he realizes this is what they've been trying to do, because the central banks, they've been putting a lot of pressure on Venezuela, trying to squeeze the country economically. And they've been doing this for quite a while right now to try to get the leader out from his position. And we can see right now that Maduro is fighting back. He's saying no more coups, and he's going to stop this. Now, we're going to have to watch this very carefully to see what happens, but we can see that the United States, the intelligence agencies, the deep state, they are still pushing their agenda. Yes, they do exist, and they still are pushing their agenda. It's almost like the Islamic State in Syria. They still exist, but their network and what they're doing is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And just like the Russian forces and the Syrian forces, they're gaining more ground and they're becoming stronger and stronger, wiping out the Islamic State. The individuals behind Trump who are trying to get rid of the deep state, the neocons and the central bank, they are getting stronger and stronger, and the deep state is getting smaller and smaller. And once they become more and more, as they get smaller and smaller, I should say, they become desperate. And this is what we're looking at right now. They still have the ability to create events. They still have the ability to push agendas. But as time goes on and as the base shrinks, it's going to be more and more difficult to do this. And this is what we're watching. And when they reach a point where, okay, they say, listen, we either pull this event off and get us into war, or we're done for. That's the point that we need to be nervous about. This is the point where they're going to use everything they possibly have to try to bring us to war. Now, out in Kiev, we understand that Graham and McCain, they visited Kiev. They said this is the year of the offensive. And we see that Kiev, they just cut off the electricity to Lugansk right now, and Russia right now is providing electricity to Lugansk. So Kiev is doing whatever they possibly can to start something to make the people suffer in this area. And this is what the United States government, central bankers, the deep state, this is what they do. They go into countries and they make the people suffer. And they hope the people then will react to the suffering and help their cause. But we see that this is not happening in many of these countries because many of these countries, well, they're starting to realize what is going on here. We see the USS Michigan nuclear submarine, well, it arrived in South Korea, and they're saying this is a regularly scheduled deployment in the Western Pacific. This is the Ohio-class nuclear vessel. This is one of the largest in the world, measuring more than 560 feet long and weighing more than 18,000 tons. They're saying it's loaded up with Tomahawk missile systems, ready to be used at a moment's notice. Now, North Korea is continually out there using propaganda. And again, we don't know if this is really coming from North Korea because it makes no sense. And I've explained this before. Why would this little fat kid be pointing at all these gigantic countries saying, I'm going to get you, I'm going to get you, I'm going to hit you, I'm going to use nuclear weapons on you? Because think about it. If these countries, United States, Russia, China, Australia, Japan, if anything should happen, North Korea is done for. If they fire a nuclear weapon at any moment, at any time, they will have nuclear missiles flying into their country, and the country would be completely destroyed. So it makes no sense why North Korea would be continually provoking these countries. It's like the Islamic State in Syria saying, oh yeah, we're going to rain down terror on all these countries. We're going to come to Europe. We're going to come to the United States. Yeah, come get us. Try to bomb us. Come on. Does that make any sense? The only reason they were doing that, and if you really believed it, was to get the United States involved in Syria so they can bomb the infrastructure of the Syrian government and help the Islamic State out. Because what terrorist group or any nation, why would they call another nation in to bomb? It makes no sense. It has nothing to do with reality. And people say, well, it's a crazy terrorist group. Well, why would a crazy small terrorist group inside a country want this to happen? Did you ever hear the Islamic State calling in Russia to bomb them? No. So Russia did come in and bomb them, and what happened? They freaking decimated them. The United States, for a year, expanded their territory. Why would Kim Jong-un say, hey, we're going to come and get you. We're going to fire a nuclear missile. We're going to sink one of your U.S. ships. Does this make any sense? Or is this the propaganda of the deep state? Actually, we could see the pattern now. It's exactly the same. It is the deep state that is pushing all of this. Now, Trump is calling the entire Senate for a North Korea briefing. Now, we don't know what this is for. We don't know what he's saying right now. And of course, the corporate media is out there saying that this means we are ready to attack North Korea. No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that at all. And North Korea hasn't done anything. Think about the propaganda they're using. North Korea is going to test a missile. Who cares? North Korea is building up troops in their country. Okay, it's in their country. North Korea is going to test another nuclear weapon. Okay, it's in their country. It does not affect the United States whatsoever. When the UK decides to test something, or if Japan decides to test something, or South Korea decides to test something, does Russia, China make a big deal about it? No. Why is the United States making such a big deal about North Korea? Well, because they have an opium market, and they're cutting into the business of the CIA with Afghanistan with their opium market. And they want the entire market. They want the entire country. So we can see right now they're pushing their agenda. Now, Secretary of Defense Fallon out in Britain, he'd said something very interesting, saying that under the most extreme circumstances, even if Britain itself was not under attack, we would use nuclear weapons as a first strike. Now, as we can see, these neocons, the deep state, they are trigger happy, and they want to fire nuclear weapons really, really bad. I mean, you could just see it, that they just want war now. They don't want to wait. And they're saying, listen, we will strike first. Even if no one fired a nuclear weapon at us and we feel that we're under threat, we're just going to fire nuclear weapons at this country. I mean, this is how insane it has gotten. Now, China, they have launched their first domestically built aircraft carrier, and they're putting it to the test, and they're going to be selling this into the South China Seas. And again, China is building up their navy. They're building more and more ships. And the question, again, is why? Why are they doing this? Because they see what the United States has been doing throughout the years, bringing in military assets into the South China Sea, bringing military assets into the Middle East, into Africa, bringing military assets into Eastern Europe. And this is why Russia and China, they've been building their military, because they realize eventually what's going to happen is the dollar is going to die. The neocons, the deep state, the central bankers, they are going to try to start a war. And we can see that everything that's been happening in Syria, well, the plan hasn't been going very well. Now, we need to understand that they've had this plan for a very long time to go into Syria, then Iran. And the plan did not work out whatsoever. And what is happening right now is that they are trying to figure out a way of completing their plan, because they thought they were going to have the entire Middle East. They were going to have regime change in all these countries. All these countries were going to be using the dollar to sell their oil, and everything was going to be happily ever after. And again, they were going to have Iran, they were going to have Syria, and the rest of the nations. Right now, they can't even get Syria. Now, they saw this during Obama's term, and this is why they decided to push the P5+1 deal, because remember, they don't like invading those countries that have nuclear weapons for regime change. And they thought, okay, listen, maybe we can try this plan. P5+1 will have inspectors come in, make sure that Iran never develops a nuclear weapon. During the same period, since we're having trouble with Syria, let's see if they'll go along with this deal, and we'll remove the sanctions, and we'll try to get the IMF in there to manage their central bank. And the spirit of the deal is that they will use the dollar to sell their oil. And what happened was Iran didn't use the dollar to sell their oil. They didn't want the IMF to manage their central bank. They decided to use the euro and then eventually switch most likely to the ruble or the yuan. And we can see this was all set up because they knew eventually, once they got into Syria, they were going to go into Iran. But there were two parts of the deal. One, to take control of the central bank and have them forced into using the dollar to sell their oil. If that didn't work, well, at least they made sure they never developed a nuclear weapon. And here we are today, where they're still trying to make their move in Syria. And that's why the P5+1 deal was created. Now, Russia and the other countries around the world, they had a different agenda, where they're saying, okay, the sanctions will be off of Iran, we can do business with them, and they knew that Iran would side with them. So we saw many things happening all at once. Now, out in Washington, D.C., we see another drill going on. Now, we have Operation Gotham Shield in New York, New Jersey, where they're simulating a nuclear device going off. In Washington, D.C., they are having a drill themselves. Now, in a statement from the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, the regional association reports that law enforcement officials and other first responders will participate in a full-scale exercise on April 26 designed to prepare for the possibility of a complex coordinated terror attack in the national capital region. The statement adds that emergency managers who work together at the Metropolitan Washington Council of Government plan the exercise to help protect residents by preparing for an attack involving multiple target locations and teams of perpetrators. The exercise will be conducted across a widespread geographical region. According to the release, The regional exercise will be staged at 6 sites in the District of Columbia, suburban Maryland, Northern Virginia, and will involve hundreds of police, fire, and emergency medical services personnel and volunteer actors to make it look real. Now, again, we need to understand that this is another drill, and normally when we see drills, something occurs. Now, does it mean it's going to? No, but this is something that we're going to watch. So if something does happen, we already know about it. We already know that there's actors on the scene, ready to be bloodied, ready to be part of the whole entire performance. Now, reporters, well, they will only be able to see and report on this an hour before the exercise starts. And the exercise is going to be from 8:30 to 4:30, and between 7:30 and 8:30, that's when reporters can report on it. So this way there'll be no cameras there if this thing does go live. Now, at the same time this is all happening, once again, we have radioactive material which has gone missing in Mexico. And Mexico is on high alert right now. Iridium 192 was stolen. This is a mobile industry radiography equipment which is filled with this, and it has gone missing. Now, we don't know where it is at this point. Last time this happened, they did find it, and they're warning everyone not to open this because you'll get radiation poisoning. Now, we see right now that all of this is happening at once. And yesterday I talked about Trump and all the indicators that we're looking at. And the purpose of that was to see if Trump was part of the deep state or not part of the deep state. And this is what we are watching. We are watching the deep state collapse in front of our eyes, just like the Islamic State is collapsing out in Syria. As the deep state collapses, they become more and more desperate. As those individuals who are in power to get rid of them, which I believe is the Trump administration and others, where they're pushing their agenda, the deep state will get desperate. And they will try for their last hurrah, an event to get a war started. And this is what we are watching right now. Right now, Trump, he's blowing up all the bubbles to bring down this economy. He's going along with what the deep state wants geopolitically. We can see that he has done nothing with Syria, but we understand that Mike Cernovich has said that there could be something happening June 1st. If I was going to do this and I was going to follow the deep state plan, I believe that they would have done this most likely around August 1st, because this is when Congress goes on vacation. Now, we need to look at all other aspects of what's going on. I'm not saying Trump is not part of the deep state or is part of the deep state, but I'm looking at indicators, and from what I'm seeing right now, I see that the plan is being pushed to bring the economy down, to call out the deep state, to call out the central bank, and to restart the system. Does this mean that this is not going to be painful? No, it is going to be painful. We're going to go through a collapse of the monetary system. It's going to be a complete disaster. And there needs to be someone that understands and can handle a default, and there needs to be someone there that can bring the system back online. Now, this is going to be a long period of time where things are going to be haywire and things are going to be crazy. And this is why you need to be prepared and ready for what is coming. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.